Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Time where we could talk about in the moratorium.
No, sir. We're going to discuss public comments after the public hearing that is scheduled at 9 o'clock. Because if we start doing, unfortunately, if everybody talks, we have to go at 9 o'clock. So,
Give me a sign.
yeah, I'll make sure you're not, I'm sure you're not missed, sir. Yeah, thank you. I think JD, into the engineer's update.
Good morning, J.D. King, Page County Engineer. Flying in Page County, sun is shining. This is, I guess, today, evening. Yesterday, we sent out the snowplow truck for a couple of rounds. There's a little pad of snow over there. The blade operators were brought into the shop and they burned brush in various locations across the county. You got lots of brush piles out there. We're gonna have a shear and or to go down to Blanchard for some tree cut down there, but given the service conditions, we didn't shear trees yesterday. We're gonna continue with winter operations, or in this case, tree cutting until the dirt gets fit to work. And this is probably of interest to most, where we won't haul rock on the roads while they're frozen. We won't haul rock until we're gonna incorporate the material we put down so we can tie it into the road to set. And then we'll haul rock. There was some minor repairs to the plow trucks at number 50. Tandem had some triple issues with a switch for the wastegate. That got fixed. And there's some motivators in for service. Yet this week I heard number 8 coming in with the routine maintenance. Now, project development is occurring as normal. We're working right now working acquire right away on the B61 bridge. That bridge is Buchanan Creek down on J53 at 280th Street. I met with 2 of the 4 landowners there yesterday. The remaining 2, one's out of state, one is down in Texas for the winter. And right now we're on schedule for July letting. Until I know the contractor, to figure out after July, for July, give me a sense of when they might do that job, but I don't anticipate that occurring this fall because of the long lead times on the precast beams. Blacktop Service, which is our seal coat contractor, will be in either before the 4th of July or after. They'll be there one or the other, but this would be directly in front of the 4th or directly after the 4th. Speaking with the manager there. The ISAC Spring Conference is later this week. The county today is in the Capital on Wednesday. I will not attend that. And probably of interest to most here, I did receive an application from the Shenandoah Hills LLC WECS application. I received it Monday afternoon at 1500, and I'm organizing that for my review. Questions for me?
How long will it review that application?
Probably 2-3 weeks. That's not the only thing I do for the job. Did you notice the quoted about project tour prior to March?
Yes.
For construction, I think that's be prudent. The more the sense of what's out there. I don't know about the schedule of that. Seems like a pretty good one.
I'm the least busiest the last week of the month with meetings.
We have, the safety meetings,
Yes.
24th, 25th.
Yeah, so that week is,
Those 2 days are out.
yeah, and that's, we got everything else to do that week. So, when do you want to have it done by?
Well, it would be
I mean, this
Before
month,
we have
right?
our 5-year plan.
Yeah.
before the 5 years. And there's nothing sacred about having it in March. We have it early April.
I would say that last week, if we want to kind of work together and come up with a date.
It doesn't have to be a Tuesday, it could be any other day.
Are you thinking all day, half day?
Half day.
Half day.
Did you receive any money with the application?
Yes. Let me check.
You don't put that back or you reviewed it though?
I was gonna take over all the problems today.
I don't know why I put the money in the bank before you review it, I got to wait on that. Like cash a check or something wrong with you yet. I got to hold on to it. No sense of cashing up. What's the auditing policy on receiving checks, do we hold checks? We have the application check, can we just indefinitely hold that, or must that be possible? A couple of weeks, I don't think everyone looks at it. We have a check.
From the Shenandoah Hills and the application check.
Brenda is asking to not deposit, we just hold the check. But do we have any requirement?
I typically report.
That's what I thought.
Yes, yeah. So I deposit the check.
Right.
I'm not
If
sure
it's bad, well,
I'm not saying it's bad, then why would we take, I know the checks the bank immediately.
if something's wrong with the application, we'll write them a check back. Any other questions, please?
Okay, you want to?
Are you not going to stay on the capital, are you gonna be in the morning Thursday?
Thursday, at least that's my plan. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, JD. We're a couple of minutes early. Angie, are you ready to move forward with the request for the compromise and assignment of each county tax sale? Situs Cultivation.
I sent you, the board, the letter from Situs, Cultivation. And, was reached out, Chuck reached out, just to see my recommendation, and generally I always recommend that we assign tax sale. The $17.39 costing to pay back taxes is more than we received. It does, give the taxing entities their base, what they've requested since 2002. The county is just not doing that, which is the cost.
I'd make a motion that we approve the request for compromise and assignment of the Page County Tax Sales Certificate as listed on our agenda. I'll second that.
Okay, been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thanks, Andy. Well, Melissa, we're about 6 minutes ahead.
I got a question, JD, real quick. JD, how much money did you receive?
$7,750.
Go ahead.
Or can you get caught up there before you do the presentation?
So you doing the minutes?
Guys, your system out of there.
Are you ready to?
Anything else?
I'm just trying to figure what that means.
Okay.
How much was it again?
7,750.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
right, well, this is the budget presentation for the next fiscal year budget. I see there's a full house, so I'm guessing you're all here really excited about next year's budget with page 20. Maybe not. Next slide. So this basically just shows some of the differences between last fiscal year and this fiscal year. And it's going to go ahead and show that the valuations for this coming year have actually increased. So overall, it's going from $774,934,000 to $818,000 there. So you can see that there is an increase, which is always good because that means that Page County is having growth. And basically what this means is the levy dollars generated by the tax, and the valuation is the tax base in which the rate is applied and over which the levy is spread. So a little bit different there. And then the rate is the amount of tax per 1,000 of value the taxpayers owe. And so this year the growth or the rural valuation was $8 million, and then the growth in urban was $35 million, and then overall that $43 million. So, and then the rollbacks are set by the Department of Revenue, so it's not anything that the Board of Supervisors can control. However, that is impactful on the taxes and overall how the budgeting process works. So this year, residential increased to 54.1302, and that was from 56. And then agricultural decreased to 89, and that was from 84. And then commercial and industrial remained at 90, and then multi-residential increased to the 63.75 from the 67.5. And then levying funds for the Code of Iowa, the general fund limit is at the 3.5 cap. And then the general supplemental is limited to certain mandated services. So right now, Page County is at 2.6 for 1,000. And a lot of things that fall under that are your FICA, your IPERS, your insurance, your emergency management, your district court, your election costs, and then your debt service this year is at 1.2580. And the main portion of that is that emergency services communication obligation that is bonded, and so every year we have a bond payment for that. The rural services basic is, the limit is 3.0, and that funds some of our secondary roads, our sheriffs, our roadside management, our environmental health. So then you can see that. So this year there's actually going to be a levy decrease of 0.46657. That's mainly attributable to the fact that the mental health fund this year went away at the county, on the county side of things. So, but overall, general basic didn't change, general supplemental didn't change, and your rural basic did not change, and your debt service actually decreased as well. And so then this next slide just basically shows the revenues for this coming fiscal year, and it shows the property taxes, our intergovernmental charges for services, are basically miscellaneous grants that are coming through. And then this next slide actually shows the projected revenues with a graph, so you can actually kind of see how all of that's funded and broken out. On this next slide, this is the expenditures, and so this goes through your different service areas and basically breaks out all of the services that we provide. And then like your public safety, your legal services, that would be your sheriff, attorney, court costs, medical examiner, your health and social services would be public health, DHS, your veterans affairs, county environment and education would be your conservation, county fair, weed eradication, libraries, roads would be basically the engineers department. Governmental services would be your auditor, treasurer, recorder. Administration would be supervisor, some services that the auditor, treasurer, recorder as well, IT, insurance, those types of things. Non-program would be the farm operations. Debt service would be the 911 radio equipment, and then capital projects would be any roadway construction that's taking place by the engineer. And so then this next slide just basically shows the breakout of how all of those break out per the budget on our expenses. The next one just goes through the budget per department, and so this just kind of shows basically where all that funding comes in and then where it all goes. So you can see that there's some departments that are more heavily funded and some that don't have as much. Of course, your secondary roads is going to be one of your largest ones, just because overall they have they're the largest department and also have the most employees as well. And so then this next slide just shows a 3-year comparison and just shows per each department how those expense comparisons break out. And then this next slide just basically goes through the taxable valuation, and basically the increase from last year to this year. The rural basic will be 1.68%, and then the rural basic dollar request, there's an increase of $24,001 on that. And then overall, this just shows the secondary roads minimum level of effort. Per code, we are required to provide so much match basically for secondary roads. So this basically just shows that to meet that minimum level of requirement, there is an increase of $23,121 that is required to go to that. The next slide just basically shows that is the that was the paper. So that's up there. And then the main highlights for this year were there were slight increases for miscellaneous corporate services, for shelter services, increase for medical and our expenses, which those are situations that are kind of outside of the board's control. Increases for juvenile court services, and increase to meet that minimum level of effort. So that is the basic budget presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
The ARPA funds, where does that show up with us? Anywhere?
Your ARPA funds are going to show up. Your ARPA funds are actually federal basic. There is stuff out of it.
And then I had one, I'll show you easier since I've got 2 sheets. This is going from this one that was the estimated for 2021. Why are we going from this down to that in our program?
Yeah.
That's off the website. That has not changed. Okay, that hasn't been redone because, okay. They were both just on the website.
I got one last year.
This one be estimated for the.
Oh, yeah. So this would be last year, so this is your actual 19-20. This is your re-estimated 2020. This is your initial budget for 21-22.
Yeah, that was the initial showing that.
And so then you're going to be your actual 2021. This would be this one.
Dr. Jacob, any questions on the budget?
No, thank you for putting that PowerPoint together. Is that available? Will you post that online?
Or if you wanted to see it and send it to us, and do that. So we have that in case we have any questions. That'd be wonderful. We can't move the hearing up. We've got 6 minutes. Yeah. This time I'd offer to take a recess if there'd be a motion.
I'll second that.
9 o'clock, reconvene at 9 o'clock.
It's
I'll second that.
Okay. This time, if there's any comments that need to be made during the public hearing time for the budget. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Now, if there's any comments on the budget public hearing. Having heard none, I would now make a motion to close the public hearing.
So I'll second that.
Okay. The motion is second to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, next item up would be to discuss approve the budget resolutions 20, 21, and 22 of the 2022 year. And I don't have those here, but you've got them over there. Sure. You want me to read through them, or do you want to? Just give the synopsis, please.
All right, so 2022 sets the salaries and benefit compensation for all elected officials. And then 21, 22 is the resolution for appropriations, setting the appropriations for the 22-23 budget. And then 2022 is setting the levies and also includes as well the approved increases for all the elected as well.
Would there be a motion to approve those three resolutions? So moved. Second.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in
Yeah,
favor?
hold on, the discussion of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
The budget all the way through, I was against some of the raises, the exuberance, so we'll go against it based on that. Just some of the raises, not all of them. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's do a roll call. For the, you want to do individual resolutions in regular?
Well, all goes together at the end anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No,
No. The first one is the salary, second is appropriation, and the third one will be tied back.
So the first one might be for him. Yeah, but some people weren't elected though. The public health salary was 10%.
Right, so that would be the appropriations then, so.
Yeah, so all three.
So roll call for the three resolutions, 20, 21, and 22. Armstrong,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Holmes.
No.
Okay. Next item up is to discuss and approve the fiscal year 23 budget. discussion on that before a motion is made?
I move that we approve the budget. I'll say that first.
Okay, and we'll do the same with any more discussion. If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Holmes,
No, based on some salaries being too much.
Okay. We're a few minutes ahead yet. Brenda, do you want to discuss your clarification information that you requested, see on the agenda? And then we'll go into public hearing, or public comments.
Good morning, everybody. Most of you know I'm Brenda Esaias, or Peach County Recorder. Last week I was unable to attend the meeting, and apparently there was some discrepancies in a number of land easement agreements that have been recorded in my office. So I'd kind of like to clarify some information on this that's been given. I was asked to look up the number of recordings that I've been involving wind-related documents. And I did a search that extended from January 1st to 2008 to February 14th to 2022. That number being 373 recorded documents, which include duplicate landowners, individuals, and companies, terminations, releases, assignments. So when you break down all those duplicate owners and termination releases, you've got, I'm coming up with 110 that's out there. But I want you to keep in mind that I'm not an attorney nor an abstract. I give an estimate as requested, and that if anybody would like to come into my office and search this, they're more than welcome. It's all public, but it's a little complex because it's all lumped together, so you have to take out all the duplicates. You've got to take out all the terminations. So that is the number I came up with, 110, but if anybody feels like they want to come in and search, please come in and help yourself, because it's all in public record. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would like to entertain public comments. I would ask everyone to please use respect toward others in this room. If you feel there's a need to raise your voice, then your time of speaking may be limited. When I ask for use of respect, that goes for us three up here as well as everyone out here. This is a very important issue, and frustration angers and isn't going to solve anything for any of us. So at that point, being said, please, with respect, if you'd like to come up to the microphone and announce who you are and make your comment, that would be fine the first time to start.
Hi, I'm Ann Morrison. I live with my husband Jay. We live 2 miles west of College Springs. I'm here today regarding the agenda item about placing a moratorium on any wind projects in Gage County. I firmly believe more research needs to be done by the supervisors before a plan is submitted, though apparently that already happened, or approved. The areas I believe looked into are setbacks. The setbacks should be from the property line. The turbine danger zone should remain on the participant plan. Decommissioning. What is the process for decommissioning? Do we know the process for decommissioning? I found very little information in the ordinance we currently have to give me any answers. I believe we need to be very specific about the decommissioning process, including how it's paid for, because in 20 years, are we going to be stuck raising taxes to decommission all these turbines? My third area, I think we need very, very specific language in our ordinance about roads, road maintenance, and who is responsible for road repairs due to the use from the trucks hauling turbine things. We, as a county, have too many questions to put ourselves into a position to not have those answered prior to a plan being presented or approved. This is our county, and we are in control of what happens here.
Anyone else have a public comment they'd like to make at this time?
Good morning, my name is Tracy Gerson. I live up in the Bethesda area. After attending last week's meeting, I had a few things that I wanted to clarify, not from necessarily much what I spoke about, but other things that were happening in the room. First of all, the idea that those on the side wanting safer setbacks are vilifying landowners. I think we would all say that we are not doing that. We have been accused of that. We are not doing that. We are simply saying, out of the 110 contracts in Page County, I guess I think that's the new number, not the 400, but we are looking at 110 people that have some sort of a contract, maybe that's underground lines, something to that effect. It's not all turbines. In Page County, of those contracts, from the numbers several in this group have found, 48% of those are absentee landowners. Now, I understand that some of those are people who are managing family farmland from afar, but I also understand many of them are investors. When we say they have no skin in the game, it is because they will not have to deal with living around them at all. That's not to vilify them, it's just the fact of the matter, they're not here. And we would also like to be heard when we say you are not elected and paid to represent them. You are elected and paid to represent the people that live in your county. Second of all, Mr. Morris, you said you would not be in favor of further setbacks because in essence you would be telling owners what they can and cannot do on their property last Tuesday night. That is our point exactly. If you put the setback from anything other than the property line, owners that have trespass zoning that spills onto their property line are being told what they can and can't do on their property. Right. That setback zone will, and I'm losing my voice, I'm sorry, I don't like doing this. That setback zone will limit and restrict what they are allowed to do on their property. We have several instances where insurance companies have told people they will not insure buildings in that zone. So you are telling people what they can and cannot do on their property. We are not saying if you have enough land for a turbine, you can't have one. We're saying you need to have enough land to house your liability. It should not be up to your neighbors to house your liability. The third thing I would like to clarify from last week's meeting is that Mr. Morris, you said that you have not wanted to look at the setbacks because quite frankly, you feel that many people on the negative side want no turbines at all. There are many people that want no turbines at all, but that is not what we have even been asking for. We have been asking for safe and fair setbacks. We have been asking for compromise for 2.5 years. We've been asking for a public meeting that we could talk, we could conversation back and forth for 2.5 years, and we have been denied that. We have asked, some of the compromises we have suggested are larger setbacks from the property line to keep someone's liability on their own land for their investment. We have brought up the concept of aircraft detection lighting systems that could be placed on the turbines where, and just for those who don't know, that would be, they would only blink when aircrafts are detected in the area. That would help with people that are concerned about the nighttime lights. We have asked, there are things we could put on such as decreased decibel limits at night. We have asked for them to be taxed fairly as any other business coming into this county. We have been asking for there to be a specific decommissioning process laid out in the ordinance. These things have not happened. We have seen no evidence of any kind of compromise whatsoever. And so then I have a few questions that I would like answered in this meeting today as the concept of a moratorium is discussed. Number one, in our current Page County ordinance, it is a 1,500-foot setback from the foundation of a livable home. I would like to know what the height of a tower that is specified for. Is that a 300-foot tower, or is that a 600-foot tower? Because that would be drastically different what the setback zone should look like. I would like to know from our county supervisors how much it would cost to decommission one tower appropriately, to remove the concrete, to unpack the land that has been affected, and to remove and haul away the turbine. If we don't know the current cost of doing that for one turbine, how can we have safety in our ordinance if that is not spelled out? We have had very little contact with this company, but what we have, there's already been an instance where they have not paid for what they messed up. If you don't know the answers to those very simple questions, how tall are the towers that the 1,500-foot setback is for, and how much does it cost to decommission one turbine, I don't know how you could pass the ordinance, how you could pass the project without knowing that. If, after you know how much it would cost to decommission one tower appropriately, how will you acquisition that money? Invenergy has been known for selling a project as soon as it's completed. That has happened in multiple counties, in Iowa and other states, and it's just the name of the game in many of those farms across the country. Often, when that happens, we've been given examples, lots of examples, that when that happens, taxes go to the state, not even the county. So I think that needs to be figured out. Are we in danger, if they sell their project to another company, are we in danger of losing all that supposed tax income and tax revenue that we're supposed to get? If that's, I don't even know all that area. Somebody that knows that needs to know those answers before we approve this project. What's the lifespan of an average turbine? We need to know that in setting the decommissioning process. If we can't get the company to pay, who pays for it then? I would say that my fear would be that the county will be asked to pay for it. We will be asked to live under the footprint of our neighbors' investments, and then we will be asked to pay for them to take them down. They're getting the revenue. Why shouldn't they have some setback, something set aside? I don't know how all that works, obviously. I don't need to. But somebody that does needs to find these things out. We've also been told over and over that there's a fear of a lawsuit. I think the residents of this county deserve to know if a lawsuit has been threatened. I also would like to know what the due process is from here. When a project is submitted to the supervisors, what happens? Do you guys approve that? You have said for a year that we would have a public meeting after a project has been presented, and that after that, you would address the ordinances. You would add things like the height of the turbine and the setbacks from there. You have said those things. You have said that the decommissioning process, we would look into that after a project has been presented and make sure that it's all in there before it's approved. When will that happen? I want to hear if that, because I also heard the phrase last week, that ship has sailed. I think a lot of us are concerned that our county has already been sold out and we've been lied to about that process. I would like some clarification as to what that process looks like from here and how those things will be addressed and our county and our residents will be protected. If there is a lawsuit that has been threatened, I think that you owe it to the residents of this county to make that public knowledge. If it hasn't, then you're simply acting in fear of it. And I think we need to know that as well. Thank you.
So I stand here in support of a 180-day moratorium. I do not feel like our county is ready for this. A moratorium does not say no.
it says we have a lot of questions answered. And I asked you, gentlemen, the questions she posed, do you have answers to those? I know you're not going to respond. It's public comment. You don't have to respond to me. I get it. There's a little respect. That's good. But the questions she asked that we've been asking for 2.5 years, have you acquired those answers? You haven't. We haven't heard them. We haven't heard them. And we've had opportunity to hear them. So I stand in support of a moratorium. When we lived in, and again, we support capitalism. We support making money on your property. Nobody, I would be one who says, I don't want the things. But I understand that's not my right. It's not my right to tell you what to do on your land. But it is my right to say, there is danger that spills over into my land with our current setbacks. When we lived in Skidmore, Missouri, story time with Mitch. We lived on the far corner of the city, and there was an ordinance about raising dogs. And we saw an opportunity to buy a kennel. And so my wife and I said, well, we can't do that in town. I said, well, let's go to the city council and let's talk to them. So I went to the city council and I presented this. I said, there's a dog kennel that we would like to look at purchasing. Do you know what their only comment to me was, have you talked to the neighbors? Have you talked to the neighbors? That's what they said to us. Now from there, we have the right to go talk to the neighbors or shut it down, because you know what? The nuisance of those dogs our liability would have spilled over into our neighbors. And so we didn't pursue it. And that was our right. And someone might say, well, Mitch, that was your right. We have our rights. I get that. But I also understand that the leaders of the city said, and their concern was the people around us. Not just that we would be making money, but they had concern from the leadership about the people around us. What liability spills over? What nuisance will you bring to the city? Check with your neighbors. And so we decided not to pursue it. I know this much, and I don't know where we are. I don't know the legalities. I know a proposal has been, it's odd to me that a proposal has been presented yesterday, at least my understanding. We've been told we would have the opportunity, not that they be changed, but we have the opportunity to change the ordinance. Now I don't know if we have that opportunity. I feel like it's been, little children, you just wait. And I feel like this has been done. You three gentlemen hold in your hands, I believe, authority for our country. And people like me who live on less than 3 acres, and I have good neighbors, I don't know. And there's not a plan up north right now, but there wasn't a plan down south 7 years ago. So I don't know what 5-10 years brings. There may be a plan one of these days. And I live on less than 3 acres. And right now, if one of my neighbors decides that he would like to do this, he can plant one right there. And I'm powerless. You three decide the fate for people of this county. I'm in support of the moratorium.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Sherry Hunter. I live down by Blanchard in the country. First thing I want to say is in Romans 15:1, it says, we then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak, and not to please ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification. The reason I'm reading that is because I firmly believe on keeping my life and my ethics and what I do in check with the Bible. Nobody else has to do that, but I'm standing before you with that in mind. So I just wanted to address a few things. Integrity is a big thing for me. We spoke last week and talked about, would we change rules right before we got married? Would we change, this or that? And then I said, well, would we still go ahead and marry somebody that we know has been dishonest and their integrity is a little shaky? Now, I agree
business agreements, all of those things are super important, but integrity is very, very important to me. And so you have to get all those jots and tittles in the right place. You have to have the wording correct. You have to be very careful, because when signatures are signed and things aren't stated, those good faith agreements, especially with somebody willing to stand right here and lie. And you can say, oh, it's a clarification thing or whatever, but Isaac Lampa, this is his quote. We went out and got feedback from our participating landowners as well as folks that are going to be around the project. That's what he stated. Then I talked to one lady. They're building a house, and she said she talked to them and they found out that they're going to have one within 2,000 feet from their house. And I said, well, did you contact them or did they contact you? And she goes, no, I contacted them. See, 2,000, a little over 2,000 feet from their home that they're building, and they had not talked to her. She didn't know about it until people started canvassing the area. See, it's integrity, guys, integrity. We're standing before you as your residents, and we're trying to have integrity. You know, then Jacob Holmes, Supervisor Holmes, questioned Corral, and he said if he had visited, or asked him if he had visited everyone in the project. Corral responded, that is correct, sir. They said they could be more clear on that. I don't know how you could be more clear, except for you would have said, no, we didn't do that, sir. Or, hey, well, there's some gray area there. Here's the deal. The ordinance that you put up, there's a lot of gray area, a lot of room for clarification. And if we don't cross our T's and dot our I's, you're going to throw someone under the bus. You ain't going to be doing this scripture. Gentlemen, you're not going to be. And look, I have so many people that I love that have signed up for turbines. I know they don't want to throw us under the bus, right? I know that. I mean, I'm trusting in good faith that they don't want to do that. I also have neighbors that really don't want them. And I know we don't have rights on anyone's property. We don't share property at all. But we do share the aesthetics of our county. And for us and the way we live, you know, I also had emailed these gentlemen. You get the response. Well, it took forever to get a response. Then when they responded to my husband pretty quick. But I don't know if it's because I'm female or whatever. I can assume a lot of things, but we all know what that means us. So I'm not going to assume anything, but I asked them a couple really simple questions. Simple. And they danced around it. Never once answered a question. They said, you'll be so happy when you see what we propose. You'll be so happy. Like, why couldn't they be just transparent and answer those questions? I don't get it. And I'm just going to let you guys know, we're certified foster parents. So we've taken a lot of courses on kids that are at risk and manipulation tactics. So we can like smell them from miles away. You're going to deflect. If you're going to put things off and not be transparent, there's only one reason to do that, and that's deception, because you want you away. So we've always said we want to compromise, right? There's certain things we care about. We don't just care about our sons with special needs. We care about all the other people with special needs. You know, hearing loss, that's going to be a big difference. They told me over and over again, oh, you'll find out when we propose this, it's going to be super healthy, it's fine for everybody. Why have we already had to move our kid a room in our house? See, why did we already have to do that? If it's healthy, and he can't sleep at night just because of blinking lights. We have good curtains. We have good shades. Remember, we had that neighbor that said, oh, just buy more expensive shades. Well, guess what? My son is smart enough to live with the shades. And he stims on flashing lights at night, so we have to move his bedroom. There's only one view we have without blinking lights. One view. And if this goes through, we've lost it. And I don't know about you guys, but I care about my neighbors. I care that they get to have the money and the things they want. This is not money. This is well-being. And you aren't taking an environment and changing it on somebody that's already purposed property. And whether or not we believe, whatever we want to think about the health issues or the studies that have been done, anxiety affects our health, right? You change somebody's environment, especially if they got special needs, guess what it produces? Anxiety. Is that gonna affect people's health? Yeah, it's common sense. Any doctor will tell you that. So I just appreciate your signatures. God sees them, we see them. We're not saying your rights can't come. I'm just saying, get those dot and tittles correct, because it's all in here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Todd Maker. My wife and I live on an acreage just east of Shenandoah, for those of you who don't know me. I want to speak today on the true responsibilities of county supervisor, because I feel like somewhere along the lines we've forgotten who we represent, and maybe even more why we ran for these positions, why you guys ran for these positions. I've been doing some research, and I'm sure you all are familiar with the ISAC's County Supervisor Manual. I pulled that up line. There's about 114 pages in that document. And on the very first paragraph, not buried on page 110 or somewhere deep inside, so it's not important, but it's on the very first page, the very first paragraph, I quote, "Under our form of government in Iowa, counties are empowered to perform any function to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and property of the county or of its residents, and to preserve and improve the peace, safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents." And so as I read that, I started thinking about, how does that apply to the wind turbine project today? And what I started thinking about is, excuse me, I have sat through several county meetings and listened to heart-wrenching stories of families that currently live near the turbines, and some who are just scared of what it's going to do to their child or their livestock, or just their simple dream of living on a small acreage in the country. And make no mistake, this issue will impact the citizens of this county for years and years to come. I want you to think back when you first decided to run for the supervisor office. I'm hoping your motives were that you wanted to serve the people of Page County. You wanted to make the residents of this county's lives better and improve the future for the future generations. The past few months, I've learned enormous amounts of information from fellow citizens and my own research. I'm pretty ashamed that I was not awake when all this started happening, when we started talking about the wind project. It never occurred to me that my representatives in county government may let something come into the county that would infringe on my individual rights or that would be potentially dangerous to my family or neighbors. And most of you know that I work for Public Corporation in Shenandoah. And we have a rule there that we follow, and I think it should be applied to how we look at this wind project in this county. We simply say that no matter how much quicker, faster, or productive a new process might be, we're not going to do it if it's not safe for our team members. Because the safety of our team members matters more than any financial gain. The same should be said about this project. If there's any question or doubt about the safety or impact to the citizens of this county from these wind turbines, then we owe it to them to vote yes on this moratorium today. The citizens of this county deserve representatives that will preserve their individual rights, preserve their peace, and most importantly, ensure their families and neighbors are safe. I'm so proud to live in a county where neighbors and citizens help each other in times of need, and I've also been inspired by the relentless pursuit of truth and information that the citizens have displayed about this wind turbines. We're so lucky to live in such a place like this, where residents care about each other, they care about the land, they care about wildlife, And most importantly, they care about their neighbors. So please look around. Look around at these people that are here today, the people that you represent. Some of them probably even voted for you at one time and trusted that you were going to do the right thing. Now is your chance. You and you alone can do the right thing to say yes to this moratorium and show that you care more about the citizens of Page County than you do the infamous big money and big energy.
Mr. O'Hearn, did you want to speak? Oh,
I'll
sorry.
be last.
Okay. You want to be last? Okay. You're not ready already. That's okay.
I'd like to start out reading.
Your name is just
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
record.
My name is John Nolan. I'm president and clerk of Page County. I'd like to read a direct quote for anybody that's interested. It says, "I am confident Summit Carbon Solutions is the right organization to take on such a necessary endeavor. It's pretty simple. Whether or not you farm or live in an agricultural community, this project possesses significant benefits to local, state, and national economies." That was a direct quote from off of the Carbon Solutions pipeline website. And that comment was made by one of our supervisors. So I'm afraid there is a possibility that that ship has sailed if that's an endorsement for eminent domain or anything else, which I am extremely concerned about going forward on projects like this. That if there's a possibility that Carbon Solutions could use that, so could wind turbine companies, et cetera, so forth and so far down the line. There is a Supreme Court ruling on that they can use it, but it will be decided by the Iowa Utilities Board. As far as the past actions of things that have gone on, all that I can say is that if there is questions about what a company has done that are truthful and it's already happened, at what point do the past actions of that company equal insanity? Can we expect anything different moving forward with any of the companies involved? And will we have the same thing? One of the things that I got a letter a couple weeks ago about was the tax valuation of my home. And I realized that a lot of people around here have got the same thing. My home went up 61%. And there was actually properties in my area that went down in value, land value. And is that something that moving forward will be taken into consideration with these things? If you want to sell your home, how will they assess that value? And if they don't have the votes to do it and people that sign on, is there a possibility that eminent domain could be used to decide we're going to put this windmill right in the middle of your 80 acres on your century farm? And I have a problem with that, and I don't even live in the country, but a lot of my friends do. So I hope that these are all things that you will take into consideration moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm just here to ask that you guys, as elected officials, do your job and defend my rights. This isn't about saying no to industrial wind turbines. Specifically, it's about protecting the health, the safety, and the welfare of citizens, small businesses, and regional ecosystems. As my elected county supervisors, I would expect you to take every aspect of such a permanent structure and research it to its fullest extent before making any decisions will ultimately affect the everyday life of my family and the future generations. As a constituent of Page County, Iowa, it's not out of line or radical for me to ask these things of a salaried elected supervisor. If anything in this situation is radical, it would be the lack of research and disregard to the everyday lives of the county residents by our city supervisors and allowing industrial wind turbines into our county as the ordinance currently reads. To best serve Page County, I urge you to put a moratorium on this topic so that all aspects can be researched before something this significant is permanent in our county.
I'm not sure if you're, oh.
Just a second. I'll let Sylvia, I promise. I am Kim Tudor. I have not done public speaking since high school, which obviously it's been a while, so bear with me. As we know, wind energy systems are currently a major topic in the world these days, everywhere. It's not just Page County, and of course we're no different. I've been self-educating myself and feel that the current ordinance 2019-2 is incomplete and lacking in areas that are quite significant. Some of the areas I'm concerned about are light mitigation. There are alternative light options, such as aircraft detection lighting systems. And those can be referenced in the legislation that was passed in North Dakota. That's already in place there. There's also a Senate bill in Kansas that they're looking at this week to put that into place. It helps to balance. We talked about compromise and balance. That's one step that could be looked at and hopefully taken. I don't see that shadow flicker limits are addressed. I don't see that height limits of towers are addressed, or a limit on the number of turbines that can come into our county. Is it just open, unended, as many as anybody wants, or are we going to restrict those? I also believe that decommissioning costs, specific responsibilities, need to be outlined a little bit better and some more details provided. Some places have put a continuing enforcement escrow deposit in place, so money is made available from the wind developer, allowing the township to hire a third-party expert to make sure any wind project is meeting the standards. They've also required escrow accounts, so money is available from the wind developer again to allow the township to hire a planner or attorney to review the applications. Another area of concern is the ongoing road repairs. Our county works hard to make our roads stay in good shape. We use them on a regular basis. They need to be, and they work hard to get them where they're at. We've got to maintain that, not just during the initial construction, but ongoing maintenance to the wind turbines. So this is an ongoing project. Have we looked at having the energy company put some money into an account to help fund continual monitoring by our county roads department? I don't think that's a cost that we, the residents, should need to absorb. Right now, there is a problem with the current, this is in Oklahoma, and it's between Custer County and Energy. Right now, they've agreed to 19 miles of total destruction. However, the county has 30 miles of destruction and 8 miles with some degree of damage. Right now, the difference between Energy and the county is a difference of 1.6 million. These are big numbers, and these are realities, and I don't want to see the county get stuck with it. Another area is a complaint resolution plan in place. Liability insurance. Is 3 and 6 really enough money, 3 million per occurrence? Is that really enough money to cover problems? I would just ask you to look at that again. I carry more than that on a personal umbrella for my little acreage. And I lost my place. Oh, back to the decommissioning. I just think we need to make sure we put things in order. We be specific about when these turbines need repaired or replaced. Have we already set an area aside for them to store components? If so, where is that? How long can they leave these things? Are they going to pile up like they do in western Nebraska? With no timeline of when these components have to be transported for disposal? And where will disposal occur? Or do they just sit indefinitely? So I just think there's a lot of areas that could use some more research and tightening up before we jump in and it's a sink or swim, and I'm afraid we're going to sink. I also question what Mr. King said earlier, and it's just I'm not familiar with the process about cashing a check from the energy company. Does that indicate that we accepted? Does that bind us in any way? That was just a question I had for y'all to think about. And I also question, and I might have not heard it correctly, when you said a lot of answers have already been provided from some of the earlier questions, and that's fine, but were those answers communicated publicly? If there's a place I can go look, I would certainly look. You were elected by registered voters to serve the best interests of all of our county. So I'm asking for, and in support of placing a moratorium on the wind energy project. Good. Let's learn from others, and let's try to balance this ordinance. Just remember, the protection of Page County begins and ends with you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy O'Hearn. I live outside of Northborough. We just have 5 acres. No one ever talked to us until someone came around and said, hey, we're having this meetings. So this was kind of the first we've heard of it. We weren't even on the map where they said, Wellhausen said yes. I have grandkids that are artistic. I didn't even know until the last meeting, and now I'm finding out things that this could affect it. So now, my grandson not going to stay with Grandma Cindy because this is going to mess with him. He has enough to worry about and to just try to survive in this world. And that affects me. Do they need to wear a hard hat if they come go pick apples or go check the chicken for eggs, because right in the backyard is this big thing that they say we have to have a hard hat that close to it, which I have heard just recently. So my place is not going to be safe for my grandkids if there's a wind turbine put up near us. We moved into the country to have our peace and just to have our acreage, and we grow our food, we can it, we have our chickens and cats, and it's like our little sanctuary. And I hope that we don't lose that. Anyway, I feel there needs to be reasonable, that you need to be reasonable, put a moratorium on the plan so that they can take time to amend the ordinance.
My name's Marianne Gibson. I'm a landowner along with my husband of land in Morton Township, farm in Morton Township,
and acreage on which we live in Lincoln Township. Initially, I was very supportive of the idea of wind energy projects. But after reading and listening and doing more study, I began to absorb the impact of turbines on those people who live in the footprint of the turbines. And for the rest of us who enjoy the natural beauty and the lack of noise pollution and the beautiful environment in Page County, I also began to be concerned. I attended the public hearing or the public meeting that some people convened at the Page County Fairgrounds in August of 2020 and heard impassioned testimony from people who live in this county and then people who live in other counties in Iowa where their lives have been severely impacted by the presence of turbines in the immediate area. While I have lived in Page County all of my 75 years, except 7, when we were away for study in the city of Ames, I've been a working person, working away from home, going to an office for many of those years. Of course, when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate the nature and the beauty where I lived. After being able to retire several years ago, I began to spend a lot more time outdoors, in the garden, in the yard, walking up and down the Wabash Trace, enjoying the natural beauty of our area. And that brought me more to a conclusion that I had great concern about the impact of the footprint of turbines in our county. We had an opportunity to sign a contract for a wind turbine, or sign a contract with the energy company because of where we live. After consideration of the fact that I didn't want to live under the impact of a turbine or the footprint of a turbine on our acreage, we decided it was not fair to sign a contract on our farm when we don't live. As a landowner, Chuck, you mentioned last week about bashing absentee landowners who have had farms in comfort or in their family for many, many years. I think that we need to understand that land is an investment. People who own land are doing it for livelihood. If they're absentee and live someplace else, they're doing it for the return on the investment. Whether or not they can own that property for the family has owned it for 150 years, whether they bought it 2 years ago. So I personally don't consider a difference between the landowner who has that land as an investment, whether or not it's been in the family for 150 years or whether it hasn't. It's still an investment. They're making a choice as to what they do with those dollars. Whether they're invested in the land or whether they're rooted in the land. I do have some confusion about a statement that was made last week at the meeting about the possibility of being sued. So I have a question for the supervisors as to whether or not there has been anything signed by an energy company that would leave the county liable for a suit if an ordinance were changed. And perhaps you can answer that question. But that is confusing to me because it implies that something has been signed that someone could bring suit against. I'm also concerned about the statement that was made at this last meeting about that ship has sailed. I have been reading the newspaper attending some meetings by Zoom for some time now. And it was my impression that the public was led to believe that an ordinance could be reconsidered or looked at, but the statement was made after we received a proposal. So that statement of that ship has sailed left me feeling very confused and concerned about the possibility that the ordinance could be reconsidered. So I just want to publicly state that I, at the one record, as encouraging the board to consider a moratorium on the ordinance or on any project, so that the ordinance can be reviewed and looked at very carefully, so that all eyes are dotted and all T's are crossed.
Mike Griffin. I have a few questions. My understanding is that yesterday there was a proposal from Energy submitted. Is that correct?
Yes.
What does that change? On the agenda, there is a point to put a moratorium. Is that possible now?
The first moratorium request is to put a moratorium on submitting, which would, in my mind, make that irrelevant. Well, since it's already happened, we'll get to that.
And then also on the agenda is to amend the ordinance. Is that possible?
We will discuss these when we get to that point.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Mary Ryan, and I'm not a public speaker either, so if my voice shakes, that's why, and I apologize. I'm here today because you guys are deciding our future, and we're discussing our future. And on one hand, you talk about the tax incentives coming in and the jobs, and it's speculation because we've heard no concrete figures. And here we're all concerned about our land and our lives, and that's speculation also, because the fact of the matter is, none of us know what the future holds. We could be in a war with Russia tomorrow, who knows? But I have a letter from a gentleman in Wisconsin who is living our future. And I would just like to read it because he says it better than I could. I'm involved in the Blue Sky Greenfield Wind Turbine Project in northeast Wisconsin. I'm also a successful farmer who cherishes his land. My father taught me how to farm and how to be a steward of the field, and by doing so, produce far better crop production. As I view this year's crops, my eyes feast on the bountiful supply of corn and soybeans. And then my eyes focus again on the trenches and the road scars leading to the turbine foundations. What have I done, he says. In 2003, the wind energy company made their first contracts with us. A 2000 incentive started the exciting process of winning us over, a few of us at a time. The city salesmen would throw out their nets like fishermen, bringing in fish. Their incentive gift lured some of us. Then the salesman would leave, and we'd talk to other farmers. When the corporate salesman returned, there was more of us ready to sign up. Farmers had heard about the money to be made. Perhaps because we were successful farmers, we were the leaders of the community and their best salesmen. What have I done? Sometime in 2004 or 5, we signed a $4,000 contract allowing them to lease our land for their needs. Our leases favored the company, but what did we know back then? Nobody knew what we were doing. Nobody realized all the changes that would occur, which we would have no control of. How often my friends and I made the statement, what have I done? I watched the stakes being driven in the field and men using GPS monitors to place markers here and there. When the cats and graders started carrying 22-foot wide roads into my field, The physical changes started to impact not only me, but my family, but unfortunately, my dear friends and neighbors. Later, a 2 foot or 4 foot by 2 foot wide trench started diagonally across my field. A field already divided by the roads was now being divided again by cables running into substations. It was now making one large field into 4 smaller fields, irregular shaped in size. Other turbine hosts also complained about making their fields being subdivided and multiple cable trenches requiring more land. Roads were cut in using anywhere to 1,000 feet to a half a mile of land to connect the necessary locations. We soon realized that the company places roads and trenches where they would benefit the most, not the landowner. One neighbor's access road was right next to some of his outbuildings, another right next to his fence line. What have I done? At a wind company dinner presented to the farmers by the turbine people, we were repeatedly told, nicely and indirectly, to stay away from the company work sites. I watched as my friends' faces showed some concern, as I had, but none of us spoke out. Months later, when I approached a crew putting in a line where they promised me they would definitely not go, a representative told me that I could not be there. He insisted that I leave. The line went in, the company had the right, I had signed the lease. Imagine being asked to move from your own property. What have I done? Grumbling started almost immediately after we agreed to a 30-year lease. Think about it. What farmer would lock in a price for his corn or soybeans for 30 years, and yet that's what we had done. Rumors also leaked that other farmers received higher yearly rates, so the contracts varied. But because of the gag order, none of us knew. The fast-talking city folk have successfully delivered their plan. Without regard for our land, we were allowing them to come in and spoil it. All the rocks that we labored so hard to pick up in our youth were replaced within a few hours with miles of roads packed hard with 10 inches of large breaker rock. Costly tiling that we installed to improve drainage had been cut to pieces by the trenching machines. What have I done? Each night a security team rides down our roads checking the foundation sites. They are checking for vandals and thieves. Once when I ventured with guests to show them the work, security stopped me and asked, standing on my own property, what I was doing there. What have I done? Now at social functions, we can clearly see the huge division this has created among community members, and that is probably the worst thing. Suddenly there are strong-sided divisions and heated words between friends and yes, even relatives about the wind turbines. Perhaps this is the greatest consequence that the harm has caused to my land. Life is short and friendships are precious. What have I done? I tried, as did some other farmers, to get out of their contract, but we had signed a binding contract, and a contract is a contract. If you are considering placing wind turbines on your property, I strongly recommend that you reconsider. Study the issues. All of the harm versus the benefits to your land, and in the future to your children's land, by allowing the company to lease your land to turbines is wrong. What have I done? Please don't do what I have done. My name's Crystal Worrell. I actually wasn't planning on coming up here today, but I've heard a lot of good people come up here, and I need to show my support for them. I was helping canvas part of what we're on the footprint of the project, and unfortunately my effort fell short because the transfer case flew out of my car out on one of those backcountry roads. So if you are in the Washington Township area around Northborough, I'm really sorry if I didn't make it to your house to notify you, but I have this interesting map here that those providers who put a canvassing effort. So to bring it to a town level on the issue of the setbacks. The cities of Clarendon and Shenandoah in previous years had this interesting subject of nuisances in their agendas concerning chickens. Roosters were not allowed in the city limits because the roosters crowing may cause sleep disturbance and annoyance to your neighbors. How would you like to have infrasound that you cannot hear, that's outside the human hearing spectrum, affect you on a cellular level without you knowing? You're allowing these to be placed within 1,500 feet of your foundation. Infrasound travels through structures. There's several interesting videos provided online. I'm not going to reference anything on YouTube because that'll get you laughed at, but there are seminars that are hours long. I have listened to them, and these are published by Harvard University, and I strongly urge you to research and find these about infrasound. They are saying that a 400-foot tower, I will back up. With this infrasound issue, they have studied 30 years of airport exposure, people living near airports, people living near mines around the world, of the blasting. So we may even be interested to learn about what the rock quarry may be doing to people living in the area. I know I grew up in a house within a mile, well, I lived a few years in a house within a mile of the rock quarry, and our walls were crumbling. The foundation was cracking because of the blasts, okay? The sound resonating through that bedrock. What are these wind turbines going to be doing when they are driving the foundation into the ground, through the subsoil, through the topsoil, to a bedrock foundation? If my understanding of how they do these foundations is correct, the resonating vibrations, what is it doing to the biology, subterranean biology, okay? I really hope that somebody has an environmental study on this, because I'm pretty new to this, this topic, so I haven't been able to find that on a local level. I found it worldwide, but nothing for Page County. I can't find any studies that have been published for that in Page County. I've also seen the eagle counters, which is kind of funny. They sit in one spot for about 5 minutes and move on. I don't feel like that's a honest study for that. During my canvassing effort, I was able to communicate to people within the city of Northborough and exterior along the J64 path, and none of them were either able to, maybe two, heard about this project previously. They said maybe a mailer would have been appreciated. Maybe that's not too late. You guys can mail something out to them to let them know that these issues are in their neighborhood. So connect to their local city council so that they can get a meeting on their city level. If this hasn't been done yet, it sounds like it hasn't been. Let them know that they're allowed to do a setback to their city limits, because I've not heard much that they've been notified about any sort of setback effort. So hopefully I don't run out of time here. We moved back from the Ozarks last year. The family asked us to move back, and they offered my grandparents' farmhouse off of town. We've been spending the past approximately 10 months renovating this home. It's my effort to put it back to a farmhouse status, because I appreciate the beauty and the structure of the old farmhouses, okay? So it has been such a challenge to find material, to find everything from baseboards, anything, new or old, to do this house, to put it back the way that it was before. You cannot do that with these wind turbines. Once they are here, how are you going to pull up a 90-foot foundation and miles of electrical grid systems that are disrupting people's tile lines and everything else, as the last speaker spoke about the fields and removing the rocks. I remember doing that as a kid just for something to do. We would go find all the rocks and pile them in the front yard. Now I see all these gravel roads going through people's fields, and it breaks my heart. When we moved back up here, I was like, what have they done to this beautiful countryside? Now, I understand the property rights, they have the right to get these wind turbines on their land, but I fully support a healthy setback due to the infrasound issues. The autism are not the only ones that are gonna be affected. Within that 30-year study, I'll tell you, if you find her, she's got blue hair, and I was a little set off by just her appearance, but she is a scientist. I wish I had her name up. Like I said, I wasn't planning to come up here. I was a little bit much better prepared. She spoke about unnoticeable, undetected heart attacks on these people that were working 40-hour weeks within the industry. And the autopsies on these people showed one gentleman had 17 heart attacks on his heart, they didn't even know, due to the infrasound. Cellular tissue was widened and thickened. So what's that going to do to us? What's it doing to our livestock? We've heard from other areas, livestock falling dead, dairy production decreasing, hoof structures on horses changing, chickens laying tissue eggs, the soft-shelled eggs. I mean, these are homesteads that you're going to be affecting. This, I believe, is relative to what is going on with the infrasound and what is going to affect people here in Case County. So, last week, I know, Chuck, you were kind of under the direct speculum of the public, and I'm sorry that I watched it on Zoom, I wasn't able to attend, and I'm sorry that it got to that level, but I hope that you are hearing the response of your citizens and accept our concerns and truly are researching the possible consequences and the long-term effects. I also emailed you, and I wasn't expecting a response, but I hope you read that whole email as far as notifying the folks within the footprint, beyond KMA, comment, and Facebook, because so many of them don't even have internet and they don't care to listen to the KMA radio. So what other kind of communication is there to these people? So yeah, I believe that's all that I have right now. I wish I was better prepared, but hopefully you guys are actually listening, because hopefully it's not too late for this moratorium, because I feel there's a lot of research that needs to be done and it's being blown off. You guys are blowing us off the lid with the turbine. It's ridiculous, honestly. We talked to people in Kansas, Oklahoma, we reference other states, and you asked about resources in Iowa, projects that are affected in Iowa. It's a new industry, rather, compared to other states that have got decades of experience, other countries that have got decades of experience, and you're wanting something right now relative to Iowa, when there's really not a whole lot. Iowa's still trying to work it out, so why can we not reference other areas and take that as a true concern? As an example of how we need to set up our ordinance to protect our citizens here by their experience. Why do we need to go through the same reinventing the wheel when we can reference other people's experience?
Brenda, around College Springs, Blanchard area. I hope if you can't see the importance and the cares and concerns and are not willing to look deeper into this, I think something's wrong. I just wanted to, I talked to a farmer who signed up kind of the same sort of story that the lady read from Wisconsin, but this is a local farmer, and they put a road where they said there was going to be 2 roads on his property where they said they weren't going to, and then they came back and said, well, we'll move it when the tower is up, and they never did. So he tried to get in contact with them, and that is a challenge in itself. From what I've heard from many people, started contacting him. Finally did, and they said, well, can't really move it right now. So he had the equipment. He said, I'm going to move it myself. It's my property. So he moved these roads over. Well, the energy company sued him for $85,000. And that was a strung out deal. But just someone made reference of buying a car, and if it's all they say, oh, this is a great car, you're going to love it, and you start to drive it, it knocks and smokes, and I'm not going to buy that car. And that is kind of what it feels like we're doing right now. But just some of the other issues, you know, they buried all kinds of gravel in the farmland, and just didn't take care of it. They were surveying for, when they were surveying for the roads, they hire people who don't really know or care, so they're cutting tiles that they're, not supposed to cut, and just ruining the farmland, and they drove through this guy's, cornfield, and so, just over and over again, you hear these stories. And so just another voice to say, you know, vote for a moratorium on this thing for 90, 180 days. Just again, just another voice to say, please do more research, and then why can't we compromise? Like what's the big push, and why can't we compromise with the property line? It doesn't seem like it seems like the right thing to do. And I guess that's all I'm gonna say.
Justice? I guess I wasn't speaking either. I just got a couple things I wanted to address. Last meeting we had one of the salesmen here behind me that was on the big screen, and he made a comment that said, you know, we have no right to tell the farmers what to do with their land. We can't tell them whether to plant beans, we can't tell them whether to plant corn, but I guess what I want to point out is this shows the disconnect between them and this culture here, the rural culture that's here. I've got a number of websites here pulled up that shows the limitations on agriculture. Dealing with whether it's livestock, you know, any kind, whether it's poultry, cattle, swine, you know, aquaculture, dealing with drainage, ditches, things of that nature. These all have respect the property line. You can't just go out and dig a trench in somewhere and dispose of runoff. You know, there's laws that prevent that. There's laws that prevent the neighbors, prevent the neighbors from stepping on your individual rights and your property as well. Just last, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago now, I only have 5 acres where I'm at. But one of my outlets from a busy day of work during the summer to come home, I love to put up square hay. I know that's crazy, right? Who wants to do that in 100-degree heat in the summertime? I'm that crazy guy. But here about 2 years ago, we had a situation with a neighbor who came out and sprayed his fields in 25-mile-an-hour winds and killed off half of our, what we call our crop back behind our house. You know, that's expensive to do, and you can't just reseed alfalfa, it doesn't work. A lot of time went into that, a lot of effort went into that, and so there we lost quite a bit, and I'm still suffering from it, and I know, again, it's just a hobby farm, it's not important to some people, but it is to us. There's limitations of the height of the buildings and where you can place your drain bins. There's things that affect your neighbors that you're not allowed to do, very simply, right? Property rights. Living in town, if you live in town, there's things that will prevent me from buying a cow, putting it in my backyard, living next to one of you guys, right? I don't think you would appreciate that. I don't think you'd like your rights to be trampled on. I don't think you want to hear my rooster crowing at 4:30 in the morning, which is every morning. Okay? There's limitations to these things. That's been mentioned 100 times over this morning. So again, the disconnect between the salesman and what he's actually trying to say there is I think it's worth dismissing. The second thing I want to talk about is, you know, before we start this meeting, we talked about, well, we took the time to say the pledge of allegiance together. I want to remind us that we're not a democracy here in this country. If you remember when we stayed this morning staring at that flag, your heart came over your heart and say, to the republic of which it stands, right? The idea here, how do I say this? The idea here is that the simple majority doesn't just get their way. The idea here is to protect the rights of the individual. Amen. You guys swore an oath at the beginning of your terms to protect the rights of the individuals in this county. I can't build on my property where I want to build. I can't insure the things that already exist. I can't do these things on my property. And yet we're going to sit here and defend the ones who are impeding. I'm asking you to defend my rights. I'm asking you to stand up and take it to them. Let's compromise. Let's find that ground that says, okay, this is your land, this is what the setback's going to be. Let's meet that compromise. I asked for a moratorium on this so we do better research and have better understanding of what the republic means. Thank you.
My name is Dave Morgan. I live in Anchorage in Yorktown, and there's been enough said. Everybody's put their plight on the table, and you can repeat it 1,000 times over. But you are the Republic, you're the guys that either chose to put that order in effect yesterday. I've heard rumors around that papers were signed, the check's been received. I'm gonna say your way out is the right to rescind. You have 3 days, that's your legal budget. So you've heard everybody's plight. So now it's on your shoulders to really set and count those costs before that time elapses. Because the moratorium will do nothing because you've already signed the papers. And that's it. Thank you.
I'm Whitney Grossman, and I was not planning to speak today, but I just want to echo the concerns of everybody else here. I'm a simple girl. I don't know politics and legal contracts and all of that, but I just go by what I see and logic. March of 2021, we were told that when there is a project submitted, after there's a project submitted, we can have a public meeting and look at the ordinance, and we can consider it. In my mind, even at that time, it didn't make sense. Why would you wait until after a project is submitted to look at the ordinance? In my mind, at that point, it's too late. But okay, you said that, okay, there must be. There must be something that can be done after that point. So, okay. Fast forward to today. There's been a project submitted. We're at that point where we are after the point of the project being submitted. And now we're told that ship has sailed. Now we are told we can be sued. We can't change the ordinance. In my simple mind, I look back and either we were lied to, or something has changed since then and we have not been aware of it. So there's all that. With this, I don't know about this check that has been received. Again, in my simple mind, I look at that and I say, if nothing has been signed, if the project has not been approved, then why cash that check before it's been approved? Because if the check has been cashed, does that bind the county in some way? I don't know. I don't know all the processes. I'm just stating what my simple mind is, and yeah, I am in favor of a moratorium. I'm in favor of a public hearing where we can discuss the ordinance and look at the changes.
Pretty soon it's going to be great. I'm checking to see if either any of you men know who Michael Polsky is.
Who?
Michael Polsky.
How's that spelled?
Polsky. I believe. Anybody know?
Named it for the
He's the founder and CEO of Invenergy. He founded Invenergy in 2001 after selling some other corporation. Invenergy is a multinational power generation development and operations company. Guess where they are? In the Americas, Europe, Asia. They have offices in Denver, Toronto, Mexico City, Warsaw, Tokyo, Medellin, and San Salvador. We were told at the introduction of this project that Iowa is their bread and butter. I don't want to be the bread and butter for Denver, Toronto, Mexico City, Warsaw, Tokyo, Medellin, San Salvador, Europe, and Asia. I don't want wind turbines to create electrons that they send anywhere but Page County. The electrons that will be
will be made here by wind turbines in this county will not serve us. They will cost us. I would rather have industry, entrepreneurial people, and work from home families here in this county than wind turbines. Those are more important than the possible $1 million to the county from Inventory every year. They said there's $2 million, but since it's Page County and Fremont, that must mean only $1 million for Page County, and I think we saw with the budget today, $1 million does not go very far if the expense is everybody has to deal with the wind turbines. I was going to say, also, just to reiterate, the out-of-county people, there's 48% of the signees are from out-of-county. In-county, but not in the footprint, are 30%. That's 78% that are not going to be living with turbines overhead. That's just a few people that have signed up, and I don't feel like I need to spend a whole lot of time feeling sorry for them.
Do you want to go left, or you really
Yeah,
want to?
yeah.
Okay.
I just have a couple of things real quick. Chuck, you kind of challenged me to take a look at case law last week when I talked to you. I had a hard time being very deep because I didn't see that hardly anyone is in the same position we are. The companies that I see, or the counties that I see getting sued, are counties that agree to something. We haven't agreed to anything yet. And that's kind of my point. Unless you have and we don't know it. You go to like Madison County where they're suing. In Madison County, they had agreed to a project in 2018. Building just hadn't started when they placed their moratorium. I was unable to find a situation that we're in. Is there any knowledge of whether or not has anybody looked deeper to talk to an attorney or anything about? Because I watched a podcast in which they were talking to somebody from Madison County, and a guy quoted the wind company, Invenergy, and said they would not, or it wasn't Invenergy, I'm sorry, it was Mid-America. They said they would not have sought a lawsuit except that they had already been granted variance. So I think the suing thing is a little bit more of a scare tactic. And then a couple things I want to say are just almost to kind of inoculate us against the things that it seems like we hear every time this discussion happens. So before we start and the discussion about moratorium and the discussion about the ordinance begins, first of all, on taxes, there is information going around saying that if you have an issue with the taxes, well, lady told us that you told her beef was with the state. That's not true. Are there state issues? Are there state things given? Absolutely. Are there federal ones given? Absolutely. Do I agree with them? No, but we're talking about the ones in Page County. Page County signed in 2008. And it says right on there, it can be repealed at any time that the supervisors no longer see it to be of, I can't do exact words, but of benefit to the county, that would remove the 0%, 5%, 10%, 15% capping at 7 years, 30%, and put them on par to be charged with the other commercial ground in Page County, which is 90% times valuation times the levy. So before we say that our beef is with the state or that we can't do anything about taxes, that's not true. All three of you sitting here were elected as Republicans. Republicans are there greasy ones? Yes, but Republicans as a whole, and the people that you are representing as Republicans who voted for you, are not for subsidies, are not for protectionism laws, this is almost coming down to protectionism, because we are protecting the big corporations while we stop the small ones in the county. So before you say we can't change taxes or it's a beef with the state, that is absolutely untrue. Before we say again that the government shouldn't control what you do on your land, Tracy did a great job of this. That is exactly and that's been what we're saying for 2.5 years, and acted like you had amnesia. Like, oh, what? You both got on the same page that night in Shenandoah. Not the meeting in Brenda, the meeting in Shenandoah. And it was like, I see this, we're gonna look at this. And then magically, over a 2-week break or whatever it was, all of a sudden, it was, and has been ever since. So, that is exactly the point. Chuck, Alan, you couldn't build a house on your lot in town, put your wall all the way up to your lot line, and open your front door and use your neighbor's yard to walk in and out. Your property stops at your property, and whatever you do on your property has to stop at your property. If you don't have enough land to put up a turbine, I'm sorry. Buy more land. There's a lot of things that a lot of us would like to do that we can't do because we have no land that we own. Your property stops where mine starts, and I control all the way to the edge of what I purchased, and you cannot do anything that changes what I can do in that spot. So if you want to determine whatever the safe setback is deemed to be, it has to stop that setback at the property line. I feel like that's simple, but every time we act like that's a new concept. So before we act like we don't know what we need again, that is what we need. And then before we start to act like we feel sorry for Invenergy because they've spent all this time and money making plans, let me remind you that everybody in this room saved, sometimes for their entire lives, planned, worked, blood, sweat, tears to build what they have, with the understanding that they'd be able to use it to its fullest for the rest of their lifetime. So don't go feeling bad for Invenergy because they give us a plan that we might say, hey, we have to back up on this. Yeah. We take precedent in our home county over them. No matter how many hours they log that they work to you, I guarantee you we've done more. And one more thing, I know this has been said a couple of times, but before you come into this saying, it's too late, or this is too last minute, we are only here talking today because we, at your direction, were told this is when it needed to happen. We tried to do this for 2.5 years. We have asked for relooking at the ordinance. We have asked for cracking that back open for 2.5 years. So do not give us, it's too late. And do not give us, it's too last minute, we can't ask them to change something now. You can look at law. And when there are concerns, the status quo takes precedence. Every person, whether they signed up for turbines or not, every person in this county bought their land happy with what they were getting when they bought it. The promise of an opportunity is great, but for that not to work out is not the fault of the neighbor, is not the fault of the county, and should not be held over someone else's heads to give up their rights to give them that. Status quo takes precedence, and that's all I have. I just wanted to clear up a few things before they're said.
Charlotte Smith, Shenandoah. Charlotte Smith. So I guess one thing that needs to be talked about or discussed is to make sure there's no conflict of interest here. So all of you that have been elected, will you be receiving any commissions or kickbacks or cash under the table for this project? Is that your self-interest on this? Do you have any family members? Are you employed by this project in any way? Will you receive anything from this at all?
No. I wouldn't work for a company that lied. So I'm good. Slow down, Ralph. I about can't stand here and be sitting there right now. Go ahead.
And I'm a property owner. We own 10 acres in Shenandoah, and we live a mile from Highway 2. Nobody canvassed us. Nobody called us. Nobody stopped by, and we received no letters. So I don't know anything about this project, and I'm mad. So my question is,
people who signed up for this and are now just finally getting some final information. How do they get out of this contract? That's what needs to be discussed. So we need a moratorium so we can get all full disclosure, top to bottom, A to Z, 1 to 6.